Robbie, what you got? Central Air on back there or something?
Yeah, right. I got.
All right. Nice, Jason DeBeas. I'm talking to an empty chair, but I am not Clint Eastwood. I am a podcaster, and this is Sports Debate Tuesday. And sitting in that chair, unlike Clint Eastwood yelling at an empty chair, is Rob. Keep it McLean. McLean, what is good, my brother?
How you doing, man? How you doing?
Yeah, hey, just found out this morning, Don Shula, one of my favorite coaches, passed away, age 90. We're going to talk about him a little later in the show. We got some NFL, we got some MMA, we got a little bit of beach volleyball. So let's get it started. Here we go. Question number one, Rob. NFL quarterback Andy Dalton signed a one-year, $7 million contract with the Dallas Cowboys. With Nick Foles going to the Bears and Jameis Winston going to New Orleans, Rob, which starting quarterback on these three teams is the most in trouble as far as losing his starting job is concerned?
Well, I'll say, Andy Dalton going there is pretty cool. That's it's very interesting to see because Dak, is not getting the long-term deal. Andy Dalton's the aging vet who could sign a long-term deal if they don't get Dak Prescott under contract. And then you have Nick Foles, who I love going to Chicago. I think he's a great quarterback, and he just needs to find the right system that has the weapons that they can explode with. The Eagles didn't have the weapons for them, but for me, Nick Foles is gonna take over that role. I think he should take over right now, but they're gonna give due diligence to Mitch Trubisky, and that's just how it's gonna be because you can't just throw somebody under the bus like that. You'll lose a lot of credit with the players and the locker room. So they're gonna give Mitch time to maybe he'll thrive under competition, but for a time being, Nick Foles definitely is the quarterback to win out. James Winston also great, and I would love to see what's going to happen, with a guy with that kind of arm, that kind of talent, under some sort of tutelage of Sean Payton and Drew Brees would be really cool. But I don't think that's going to be a changing of the guard anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, let me start by Rob, if I may. Let me start by process of elimination, who I think his starting job is not in trouble. And I want to start first with who you started with last. That's the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees, I think, has one year left on his contract, or maybe just signed for another year. One way or another, he's there for a year, and when the year's up, he's going to decide if he hangs up his spurs or goes away. And I don't think his job is in danger, and I'll tell you why. Because when he got hurt, Bridgewater came in and was 5-0 as a starter under the New Orleans Saints. And they had a ton of momentum and a trust system in him between the head coach to the quarterback and the quarterback to the players, all the way down to defense and special teams. So if Drew Brees was going to be replaced, if his job was in trouble, that was the time his job was going to be in trouble. Certainly not with Jameis Winston, with respect to him, who threw a trail a load of touchdowns, but also a trail a load of interceptions. Which leads me to case number two. I bring your attention to the Dallas Cowboys. Man, always some drama, right? Got to sign this dude. You could give Dalton his $7 million, but and you could pay this dude and not pay that dude. And I've always been defending Prescott. But Prescott has been holding out on some contracts that I thought he should just take it and run. And you co-signed with me, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. There were some contracts in 105 or something like that, and it was like XXX, something guaranteed. And you're like, dude, just take it. Be a Cowboy. So
yeah, and he said, might as well keep getting more.
Right? So I think Prescott's job is not in danger either, but I think there's a chance he'll hold out. And the Dallas Cowboys, this is the level of thinking I think they're going. Their level of thinking is they can win. If he's out, there are a bunch of games they can win with Andy Dalton. There are a bunch of games that they're definitely going to win with Dak Prescott. You play Washington twice, you play the Giants. Maybe it might be closer this year, but I think the Dallas Cowboys are still a better team. Those are the games you definitely win with Prescott, but you most likely win with Dalton. What they don't want to do is win a bunch of games and have him hold out, and then by the time he comes, he's fighting catch-up ball. And you've seen him do it in individual games. Right? You're not using Zeke because next, boom, they're down 21-0 or they're down 14-3 and they get nervous and desperate and start throwing. So just like that, Cowboys might be an accident waiting to happen, but his job ain't in trouble. Which leads me to my last thing. Mitchell Trubisky is the most criticized good quarterback in the NFL, and it is justifiable. All right, you go second, and people like Patrick Mahomes gets drafted after you. It makes everybody scratch their head about how they reevaluate who's a top prospect and who's good and who's not.
Hmm.
His fifth year option got declined. Nick Foles is coming in, and Nick Foles isn't just a quarterback. Nick Foles is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Nick Foles ties the record in touchdown passes thrown in a game with 7. I think he tied Brett Favre. So he's one of those guys that can get the Bears 10-6, and that even in a division that Rodgers isn't ready to give up the crown, and even in a division where Minnesota, under good coaching and good tutelage and togetherness, seems to constantly get better too. So Detroit Lions. If you think Dallas is snake bitten, that's a snake bitten franchise, dude. They lost, they lost Calvin Johnson to a freaking bomb, to a Hail Mary by Aaron
Crazy.
Rodgers. So yeah, who by the way, what people don't talk about, he got a roughing the passer penalty, 15 yards, which put him in that position that people don't remember. So Rob,
Hmm.
if the question is whose job is in a lot of trouble right now, in the most trouble, glaringly, co-sign with you on this debate show. No opposition here, my man. It's Mitchell
No
Trubisky.
opposition. Yeah, and the other thing about that is, I really think that Nick Foles is not going to be able to maximize what he can do unless he's in a situation for a full year. So like he needs to have, that whole thing going for the whole year long to get the maximum amount out of him. So if Mitch Trubisky comes in, if they can get him out of there in week 2, I think it'll be better off than week 4. You know,
Yeah,
so.
100%. Man, that was easy. it's,
Mm.
it's supposed to be a debate show. Moving right along. Topic number 2, UFC fighter Conor McGregor's meteoric rise to stardom transcended well outside the limits of the sport, meaning that people who do not watch the UFC, much less mixed martial arts, know the name of Conor McGregor. Many believe that he's the best fighter in MMA today. So, Rob, is he in fact the best fighter in MMA? Which we might say no, and if not, who are 3 fighters in his division who can beat him on any given day?
Well, you want to take this one first?
Well, we're gonna go 1-1.
Okay.
My We're gonna go 3-2-1. Number 3 on my list of the fighters that can beat Conor McGregor is Kevin Lee. Any fighter that has elite wrestling and that has good upper body strength and has good endurance to be able to do that for 5 rounds has a very good chance of smothering Conor McGregor and dragging them into deep water where the wrestler swims the best and Conor swims the worst. We saw Chad Mendez do that on 9 days' notice and had to cut weight from 163 to 145. And until he lost that fight, he got clipped. He was winning. He had top position. Didn't do a whole lot of damage. I mean, Conor could take a hit, and Conor was very big for that division. He's big for 155. So
Hmm.
Kevin Lee is one of those guys. He has a chin, and he does the chicken dance if he gets hit hard. But you never really see him get knocked out. You mostly see him lose his fights by submission. He gets caught in the hole because of poor jiu-jitsu. Not poor jiu-jitsu. Not a That's such a bad word to say at that elite level. You're just getting caught by big guy by six slick guys, right? You get
Hmm.
you get submitted by RDA, ain't no shame. Okay, so I take that back halfway. But a lot of his losses have been by submission. So I don't see Conor submitting him, and I don't see Conor knocking him out. Kevin Lee, who's your third?
My third, I was thinking about this for a while, but my third, I think, is actually going to be Edson Barbosa. Um, and I say that
Ooh,
because I believe that Edson Barbosa's loss is really based on how he defends his opponents. And I think a lot of times, especially when he faces his wrestlers and stuff like that, he focuses more on how to counter his opponent as opposed to using what he's good at and making them kind of change to him. So I feel like, Edson Barbosa is still growing, and I still think in a total stand up, because that's what Conor wants to do.
no
Even
doubt.
with Nate Diaz, not being able to, having a much better opportunity to submit him on the ground, he's still going to stand with him. You know what I mean? And Conor wants to stand all day long. So a guy standing against another guy, Edson Barbosa is one of the scariest dudes out there. And I think if he leads with his legs and he actually executes a plan, like kicks the legs out when he gets close, like man, he's a scary dude. So that's definitely my number 3.
Yeah, it's strange you should say that because when I mentioned the chicken dance with Kevin Lee, the guy who made him do the chicken dance with a spinning heel kick
Mm,
was Edson Barbosa.
that dude is crazy,
He
man.
is ridiculous. So, my number two is Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib Nurmagomedov, six Samba wrestler. Samba is highly underrated as far as a ground game, as far as American wrestling and jiu-jitsu and taekwondo. Nobody talks about Sambo wrestling, and the most elite fighters we've encountered from Russia, of Fedor Emelianenko, good sambo guy. Khabib Nurmagomedov wrestles bears, wrestles cubs. you know, so I'm not picking him to beat Conor because he's done it before, even though I think we both can stipulate that we don't see what will happen much differently if they fought again. So I'm not trying to make the illogical, trying to break my rule, one of my commandments of logic, saying just because something happened before that it's going to happen again. But there's not a whole lot of evidence that anything will happen differently. Khabib can also take a shot. When Khabib dropped Conor in the second round, he went after him, and when he went after him, Conor cracked him. Cracked him, that would have dropped anybody else, but didn't drop
Hmm.
Khabib. And Khabib got hit in the face and was like, okay, I'm still going to smother you, and we still going for a ride. And while he was on top of him, what was he saying? Let's talk. Let's talk, Conor. It was, yo, you know what it reminded me of? When I was growing up and my mom used to whoop my ass and she had the belt. How many times did I tell you not to be leaving? I mean, man, you talk, man. I mean, Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Well, my number two is Tony Ferguson, and I'll talk about him against Connor first.
Abdel, I see you. Sorry, go ahead.
Um, Tony Ferguson, crazy dynamic. I think that he is my number two for this reason that he likes to take the fight everywhere, but that doesn't mean that he necessarily isolates the fight in one area. And I think that gives more of a favor to Connor, where a lot of that leads to more standing up than it does on the ground. And he does his little, jumping at you, spinning, try to tangle up the legs thing. But I think if you're a high IQ fighter, and you just stay away from those little trick things, and you try to stay on your feet and you don't get taken down, that's I think Connor has a very big opportunities all over the place to finish Tony, or to put Tony out with, stun him and then put him out with a barrage, or something along those lines. Um, yeah, so
So
in my
Tony's your
my
number two?
eyes, Tony's my number two. In the I don't think it's that he's not the number one fighter in the world. I just think the way the matchup is, I think that Khabib is a better matchup against Conor McGregor than Tony Ferguson would be.
Yeah,
So
listen. We can go down a list of who our best fighters are and who's second best, a third, or whatever. But styles make matchups.
hmm
Michael Johnson, who used to be 155, moved down to 145. I think he's back in 155. Ultimate Fighter winner. That is Tony Ferguson's last loss. And Michael Johnson, who's a wrestler who has pretty good pop, a pretty decent right hand, threw him all over the cage. He
hmm
couldn't finish Tony because Tony's impossible to finish. You can't rattle his brain because I don't even think there's a whole bunch of stuff up there to rattle. Which goes to my point why I have Tony as my number one. I understand why you have him as number two because the more the fight stays standing, the more it serves Conor as an advantage as opposed to dirty boxing, as opposed to cage, and as opposed to this and that. With that being said, my argument is that Conor struggles against people who have a reach that's as long as his, or significantly longer. Nate Diaz got cracked a lot of times, but he didn't get cracked full force because Conor's extension, who were dropping people with less of a reach advantage, were getting hit harder. So in addition to someone like Nate having a strong chin, and in addition to Connor's gas tank and being out there and going against volume strikers. I give you Nate Diaz, and I tell you, take Nate Diaz, give him a 2.0, or give him a Nate Diaz, multiply it by 2.5. I'll give you Tony Ferguson. If he had trouble beating Nate Diaz that first match, if he had trouble surviving Nate Diaz that second match, because even if he won, and I dispute that. I thought that was a draw. I thought Nate had a 10-8 round, which made it a draw. But if he had that much trouble with Nate, I think he's going to have a lot of trouble with Tony. And I guess my question to you is, before you get to your number one, and your number one's obvious, my question to you is this. Does waiting longer serve Conor more of an advantage or less? Do you think Tony's training really hard where he's getting maybe he's not one of those guys that spars hard, but do you think he's training really, really hard where maybe he might be a step slower and get caught more? So my question to you is, the longer the wait goes for those two to fight, who does it serve as an advantage to?
Between Khabib and
Tony Ferguson.
And Tony, I honestly think that it's going to only help a Khabib.
Between Tony and Conor. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Between Tony and Conor, I think it's going to help Tony just because the more time he has off, the more time he doesn't have to like injure his body in trainings, and he gets to rest a little bit. Conor is the one that needs to be active. He's only fought once in 4 years now, so he needs to be able to kind of up his game fighting experience. But and then in essence, everybody's coming back from an off period. Yeah. So
well, for MMA guys, that's right. Come on, if you get a 6-month suspension, you're not going to fight. You're probably not going to fight in 4 to 6 months anyway. So
yeah, but even sparring is different than fighting in competition.
Agreed. 100%.
I think everybody's kind of coming back in the same slate, and I don't know. It's really interesting. It's very interesting.
Who's your number one? Say it with me.
Khabib. Khabib, just because I feel as though his style is just the perfect kryptonite to whatever Conor's trying to do. Because if you really think about it, Conor is almost so great at almost at one thing, being a knockout artist, but he's almost not really great at anything else. He's almost like a Ben Askren, but like he's got the one thing everybody wants to see. He's got the knockout punch at 170 pounds, 160 pounds. So he's got the star power, but he never really maximized his potential, and I think that's what's showing up at the end of the day is that, Tony Ferguson is going to crush Conor McGregor if he implements a plan. Khabib is going to crush Conor McGregor if he does what he does, and Conor has to do whatever he needs to do to maximize his ability now so that he can defeat those opponents. He's not coming in as the front runner, and that's the issue is that,
I really like your choice with Edson Barboza because how many times you see Conor go against someone who's 8-point striking, as dynamic and as original as Conor is. Not to mention the reach. Like Conor has a 74-inch reach. I think Edson Barboza is like 71, and that goes into the category of close enough. Because all of the people that Conor starched is like 68, 67. Nate was longer. Nate was 76. Tony Ferguson is 77. Kevin Lee is 78.
Man.
So, but it's about how you use it.
How do we not get a Nate Diaz and Khabib match? Like, where has that been in our life?
I don't know.
How does that never happened before?
That's a good question.
Like, come on now.
That's a good question. And at some point, I think they're snake bitten, but at some point, Khabib and Tony, they've tried to make this fight.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so.
1, 2, 3, 4.
7 times now?
5 times. 5 times they tried to make this match. And 2 of them ended because of got canceled because of freaky things. Tony tripped over some wires. It was out almost a year. The week of the fight.
That almost seems like he hurt himself prior. And then that happened, and it was like, now it's something,
Yeah, well, big up to 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. I forgot the guy's name. He's always on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's a really cool dude, and he's a great jiu-jitsu dude. The big time conspiracy theorist. And I'm loath to say I can't remember his name. That sucks. Eddie Bravo.
Oh yeah.
Eddie Bravo. Eddie Bravo is his coach, and big up to them, and just the smart training and just coming up with new ideas all the time. The reason why this topic came up because I think when you have someone who's the most popular fighter in mixed martial arts, people are under the impression that they're the best.
Hmm.
And I think people get too carried away and oh oh he proved all the doubters wrong beating Donald Cerrone, and I'm like, if you picked Donald Cerrone to be Conor McGregor, you don't watch the sport. He didn't prove any doubters wrong. You and I already agreed stylistically that was not a good matchup. You got a guy who starts slow against a guy who finishes people fast. That's a recipe for disaster, my man.
Hmm.
So yeah, so there was that. And yeah, I guess we'll close out with that. Close out with that. We got our three, and I really love your third, and that'd be, I don't know, that's a fight like if they make a Matrix movie, maybe just have the two of them in it and fight in that. Just stand up. All right, so this day in sports, we're gonna get a little deep here. Pete Rose, this day in sports, May 5th, this Tuesday, May 5th. Pete Rose gets his 3,000th hit. Now, Pete Rose is the 14th player to reach the 3,000 hits, and we never. And I think he leads. He still holds the record, most career hits, 4,256. And this question has been asked before, but never asked on this show. And since we got to cover this as one of our bases, and it means a lot to me. And we're gonna dive into this. Should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame?
I mean, absolutely. And this is as a baseball fan, this is as a Pete Rose fan, and this is like as an ethics fan almost. Um, I get the whole punishment. I get if somebody's being vindictive or if they're trying to, continually hurt the shield, or they're trying to go through back channels to earn money through what they did. But Pete Rose has been nothing but, apologetic. He's always accepted his suspension. He's never badmouthed the people that gave it to him. He admitted his wrongs. I'm not to say he never did, but he hasn't continually. And
Yeah.
over time, different people that are supposed to be the commissioner, and then you look at how people are being treated now and how punishments are being handed out now for cheating. And we don't even have to go into the Astros or the steroid
We just might.
scandals or the corked bats, the corked balls, the tar on the fingers for the pitchers. We can go through 1,000 things, but his was deemed upon most seriously, and I understand that. But if you have any type of leniency, you understand that he doesn't have to. He's not going to be able to earn back his endorsements. He's not going to get back the fans that loved him. He's not going to be able to do anything other than to help the Cincinnati Reds be a better franchise and to get to a place where he rightfully deserves. I mean, nobody. That is one of the best, the most important skills in baseball, which is one of the most important sports in our country's history, and he's the leader. At the top of the board of all the greats that have ever played, he hit the most hits. He's hit the most doubles. He's hit the most switch hit doubles. He's the best of all.
Yeah.
Like, he's the best hitter of all time.
I'm looking this way because I'm looking at all the numbers. It's just sick, dude.
It's staggering, and yeah, it's actually sad because I think it puts a stain on the game. Not that he put, but what we continue to have, and it can change. He wants to be there. He's there to make the image change, to it not be a black spot on the league. It never has to be seen that way again. It can just be Pete Rose, one of the greatest baseball players of all time. He
Yeah.
served his time.
Yeah. Well, Rob, this is supposed to be a debate show, but once again, just like the movie 8 Mile, you did an Eminem on me. I know everything he's about to say against me. I am white. I am a freaking bum. I do live in a trailer with my mom's. Everything you said is 100% correct. And in this society, It's very, very easy for someone to do 19 things right and one thing wrong, and people use that as a straw man argument why he should be hung out to dry. Now, this in this day society, I understand that. I don't understand in the past where everybody just made mistakes all the time, and you got punished for it, and you've been forgiven, and you come back from it. All right. Now, I'm gonna tackle this from all ends. From an off the field perspective, Rob McLean. You have people in baseball who are racist that are in the Hall of Fame. Ty Cobb can't lost the amount of times the guy used the N-word. You got people who beat their wives, beat the living crap out of their wives. You got guys who commit fraud. You got guys who commit grand larceny. You have people that commit burglary. And a lot of these people are not only still revered, but some of these people are in the Hall of Fame. And then so I just got that off the field covered. And people says, no, it's not off the field that matters. It's only on the field, all right? Okay, good for him. As a side note, it's so weird that a lot of other sports you can bet on yourself. Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather bet on himself when he fought Conor McGregor. Okay, perfectly legal. Okay, gee. So on the field, it only matters what you do on the field. What did you just say? How many people got busted for performance-enhancing drugs that are in the Hall of Fame? It's just ridiculous. You want me to name some names? People that know? Barry Bonds. Used. Hall of Fame. Mark McGwire won the home run title. Him and Barry Bonds stole the home run title using performance-enhancing drugs. Why did you do it? I took it to enhance my performance, Rob. You think I'm going to take it to diminish my performance? Oh, but baseball ain't got a problem with that, right? Oh, it only matters what you do in the field, right? Yeah, sure. And you just said stealing signs, Astros, Boston Red Sox, literally telling the guy what the pitch is going to be so the guy's prepared for the pitch. Oh, but the integrity of the game took a hit, but it's not a deal breaker. Those guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame. Those coaches are going to be in the Hall of Fame. You got a guy over here who denied that he bet, but didn't throw any. But unlike Lance Armstrong and unlike on some other people who denied, he didn't go after reporters in people's career. He just stayed silent and then until he was ready to come clean, which is, I think, is the right way to do it, Rob McLean. If you get busted for performance-enhancing drugs, if you get busted doing something wrong, there's two things you can do. One, you could just come clean, you got me, or you can go hide. You don't go out there and you chest thump and you deny, and you throw people under the bus only to go on Oprah later to be like, yeah, I'm sorry. Because in that instance, sorry don't mean ash. This man did it. He's sorry. He has a gambling problem. The Dowd reports is suggesting that he bet against his teams on some of that, and that's why people have a problem with that. Because as a baseball manager, there are ways you can tank the game if you bet against your team, but there's no evidence except this guy's belief. The guy that did the report said, I believe it, and there's no evidence. The guy who's only supposed to submit a report based on evidence says he there's no evidence, but I still think he did it. And it's just sickening. It's maddening that this man bet on baseball decades ago, and you have people that are cheating at what is close to, which it feels like yesterday. No problem for them. Integrity of the game. Go kick rocks. Pete Rose deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. The Cincinnati Red, who won as a player and as a coach, the leader in hits. The stats are just amazing. Most consecutive games with 600 or more at bats, dude. Most consecutive games with 100 more hits. Most seasons with 200 or more hits. Most career total bases as a switch hitter. Most career runs as a switch hitter. I could go on and on and on, but we're going to stop because we agree this debate was over before it started. Make mine, Pete Rose. Woo! Like that Ric Flair thing?
Gotcha.
He's like, yeah, you got it. Topic number 4. By the way, Abdel Stune agrees Edson Barboza would be a sick match. His 3 picks were mine. His picks were Khabib, Tony, and Kevin Lee. And he said a lot of really good guys, Conor, because they get caught up in this hype. A lot of good guys, won't even get to fight him. Gaethje, I don't think is a good match for him because they both had bad gas tanks, and I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they just get stabbed in the gas tank, get kicked in the gut,
I think Gaethje, loses that Conor McGregor fight just because he doesn't really implement his offensive wrestling, right? So maybe defensively his wrestling is great,
he's
but
so good at it too, and he doesn't use it.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. The same thing with Edson Barboza, and that's why it's tough for me to put him on that list sometimes because what I see is so much when he's trying to kick, it's almost so reckless. then I'm like, all right, well, use that and create space with that recklessness. Don't He always uses that recklessness on defense. And if you're somebody that's stalking, a fighter, and then somebody's just being reckless, you can kind of see that and just kind of feint back and then get back again. And he leaves himself so open doing that. But if you're doing that on the attack, nobody knows where it's coming from. So you're going to be reckless, and then you're going to, do some damage. That's why he just when he kicks the legs, and oh man, like if he did that to any top athlete, if he kicked somebody's leg so much that it welted up, he's going to win that fight.
Yeah.
I don't care who
Get
you
you?
are. So that's all I'm saying. No.
Oh no, no.
Barbosa.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna. So that's why. But
He's
it's
had
just
some stoppages, right?
if you don't implement that tech,
Yeah,
you're not
but
that fighter.
but he's had some stoppages via
That's what I
leg
mean.
kick. Yeah, so
That's what I mean.
there's your proof right there, my dude. Proof's in the pudding.
Proof's in the pudding.
All right. So listen, we're going back. We're going to finish with mixed martial arts because this Saturday, big event I've been waiting months for. Some changes in the double main event, but one change for the better and one and we could get into that. UFC 49 is coming up this Saturday and is stacked with a card that has 2 title defenses. Outside of the double main event, the question is, which match is the most intriguing to you? And I'd like to go first, all right?
Yeah.
And before
yeah,
I go, I said the double main event doesn't count. I'm very, very glad to see Dominic Cruz back in the mix, and he's fighting Cejudo.
I was gonna say that too.
With Styles making matchups, it's just him alone. Doesn't even matter who he fights. Just him back is an intriguing matchup because the guy takes so much time away and doesn't believe in ring rust. And when it's time to put the proof in the pudding and practice what he preached, man, does he deliver? Does he? Does he not? So big up to Dominic Cruz. Glad to have you back. So I have Fabricio Verdum versus Alexei Olenek. I had another match I was prepared to talk about, and then I just looked again, and you can look again and again, Rob, and you can come up with different ones.
There's
dude.
a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
Alexei Olenek, for those of you who don't know who he is, Russian cat, or 58 wins in mixed martial arts. 46 of his 58 wins are by submission. Fighting Fabricio Verdum, the guy who submitted Fedor Emelianenko, the guy who submitted Minotauro Nogueira, the guy who submitted Cain Velasquez to win the UFC heavyweight title. I don't know. These guys when you have 2 MMA or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Samba fighters that are so good on the ground, do they have an unsaid agreement where they're just going to agree to fight on their feet? Or do both of them just sit on their butt before the match starts, and that guy with the dreads, Herb Dean, is like, you ready? And they just like lower themselves via hand and butt and just connect on legs. How is this match going to go? Is it going to end by knockout? I mean, we're not talking about slick submission artists. We're not talking about the top 5 in their craft. We're talking about the best of the best. We're talking about guys who submit people that can't be submitted. So Cain Velasquez got submitted, dude. Got submitted. Yeah. Fedor Emelianenko got honey-dicked. He scored a knockdown. The knockdown wasn't that hard, but it was a hoodwink. He fell, and Fedor came on the pounce and got sucked in a triangle choke and reluctantly the one tap. That's how that happened. So I might go into one match after this if we have a little bit of time, but the floor is yours, Rob. Who's the most intriguing match to you?
I mean, the most intriguing one is Ngannou and Rosenstruck, and that is just crazy. I mean, again, hopefully that doesn't turn out to be like who was it? Who's the big bull? I can't forget it. I can't remember his name.
Alistair Overeem?
No, the lefty, the big dude.
Oh,
in the heavyweight division. I can't
Stefan Struve.
No, I
that dude's. Am I going too big? He's 6'10".
No, the big black dude. I can't remember his name right now. What the heck is his name?
Oh, Derek Lewis.
Yeah.
I can't believe how that match turned out.
I hope it doesn't turn out like that, right? The Derek Lewis Ngannou fight, but the worst heavyweight fight of all time. But Ngannou, man, I just hope that Rosenstruck is a guy who wants to throw. That's definitely not going to go 2 rounds. If it does, it's going early, mid 2 rounds. That's it.
They'll be disappointed.
Um,
The fighters will be
you know,
disappointed if that goes to a decision.
yeah, because it's just they're not going to throw if that's it. They're going to throw once around. But I think it's going to be a fight where Rosenstruck really pushes Ngannou to engage, and then I'm just really interested to see like how Ngannou is going to adjust and show off his IQ as a fighter because if he hasn't grown as a fighter at this point, then his career is kind of tapering off here. So this is a really big fight for him, and I think it's a really great matchup, and that's pretty much the most intriguing fight that I think anybody's going to see that night.
Definitely. I bring your attention to Calvin Kattar too against Jeremy Stevens. Two guys that are hot-headed, that are short fuse. I like to bang. Definitely going to see that. I also bring your attention to Vincent Luque and Nico Price, two more go-getters. Uriah Hall, New York native, is going to be fighting Jacare Souza. Uriah Hall's the guy who, if you remember The Ultimate Fighter, like his highlight reel was that spinning back kick that knocked someone out that we thought he killed him or gave him like permanent brain. It was scary. The knockdown wasn't scary, but like watching a guy trying to recover, we were just like,
ouch.
Do you remember that?
Well, there's another fight too, Anthony Pettis. Pettis is fighting.
And I was gonna ask that. Is that a fight we need to see again? That's Cowboy.
I mean, I think that Anthony Pettis is kind of like reinvigorated. I think again, it's a great. I think every fight is important in the sense of it puts everybody to the test. I think that Cowboy has a lot to prove. If he wants to stay in the game, and that's in all seriousness. And whether or not I think that he didn't show up in a big fight again or not, or he can fight till
which
he
to us
passes
wasn't
away.
a surprise.
But should he stay in, I think it depends on if he's fighting at a high level. And, Anthony Pettis is in the same position, a lot younger, but in the same position where, if he doesn't put up good fights, you gotta keep the standard high.
Yes.
So
yeah. Pettis.
I think again, this great litmus test for both of them.
I want Pettis to keep fighting because one, I don't think he sustained a lot of damage in his fights, even though it seems like he bruises easily. Like he lost his fight to RDA because he got punched early in the first round. And the guy never makes excuses. They're like, "Oh, do you think your eye made you lose?" And he's like, "No, my eye got damaged because he punched me in it." So
Right.
I like that he's like, "Hey, all right, big up to this guy. Not my day, and I'll be back." And he's been very, very exciting to watch. Knocked out Stephen Thompson, which all of us I would call an upset. I didn't see that coming. I just thought Stephen Thompson had size and Stephen Thompson had a good chin. And I'm like, so many people have hit Stephen. I like Tyron Woodley and him went 10 rounds, and Tyron Woodley decked that dude, and he recovered. So I just didn't see Pettis knocking out.
But when you see those things on TV, though, that's when I think you start, asking like what happened in training. Did he get clipped in training? Stuff like that.
Yeah. A la Marvin Eastman.
I think Anthony Pettis. I think he put on a lot of he got worn a lot in his earlier years. When he was trying to come up, he had a lot of dog fights, a lot of like tough battles. And again, I just think it's because he's not a guy that specializes anywhere. He's kind of a jack of all trades, but to put it together, he's got to really connect on something or be in a scramble mode and connect than if you're in the pocket with somebody and trying to outmaneuver them. I don't think he's that skilled or that specialized in that area.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. I like it, man. Good cover, man.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Oh, not to mention Greg Hardy, ex-NFL star linebacker, is going to be fighting Jorgen De Castro.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Hardy, out of his
that's going to be a
Greg
good
Hardy
one,
out of his 6 wins,
Castro's
5
nice.
out of his I think out of his 6 wins, 5 a KO.
Yeah,
both of them.
He was real nice. I think he was a lefty, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, he's power in both hands, but he fights left. He fights left-handed. I think he's right. He's weird. I think he's right, but he fights left-handed. like
But
this.
man, he
Yeah.
got the power in both, and man, it just looks
Yeah.
dangerous. Like that's what I'm saying. Greg Hardy's in for a fight.
Very similar
He
though.
gonna get the beating that everybody wants him to get. It sounds like,
That's
to
why
be
do you
honest,
think everybody's like, oh no, why does this guy get to, you
because
know?
he's a high profile
Thank you.
somebody who kind of beat their wife or beat their woman, and is known to do that. So it's like being in prison. Like if you rape somebody or you're a child molester, like you gonna get it. That's just
Derek
that's
Lewis is
that's
one of that
the
fight.
rule of the law. Yeah, he wants that fight.
Because Derek Lewis is very, very keen on people that beat on a woman. He does not.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a past or if just. Well, no, I don't think you have to have a past. It disgusts me. It disgusts me to see a guy bullying like beat on his woman.
Right.
You
I
just like
think if you
just like
even
this
see
huge.
it once,
Yeah,
you don't even have to be affected by it, but it's just
it
if you
angers
see
me.
it once, it's like, nah, that's not right.
It angers me. I mean, I remember growing up. I said, "Don't do that in front of me." I didn't mean to get involved, but I also remember getting involved in those situations. When the cop comes, they ask the wife what happens. They say, "You started it," because she got to
Well,
go
and
home with
that's
him.
and that's the other thing is like it could be that you were in a situation where like I could have like you could have done something and but you didn't. You had
Yep.
to restrain yourself, and that's like and that's what you're expecting out of somebody else. And if they don't give that at least, then you got to go teach them a lesson. You know,
Yes.
more power to them.
Could this be the guy? I mean, right now, Hardy's 5-2. All of his wins except for one, I think, is a knockout. I think he won a decision, and he lost a no not lost. He had a no contest and a loss to Volkov, a unanimous decision. But I thought it was closer than it was. But Volkov won, and then you got De Castro. All of his wins are knockouts. That dude don't. Ooh, a tornado hits
Yeah.
meets a volcano, huh?
It's gonna be a funny one. I think you're gonna see
Yeah.
a big old grown man flopping around the ring. That's what I'm thinking.
We got to do a watch party for that, dude.
For real.
Right? We got to do. Yeah, we got to do. Right? We got to do a virtual watch party for that.
Yeah, man. Zoom it up or something.
No doubt. Cool, man. All
Yeah.
right, so now we go into our section of say it with me. Good idea, bad idea. Doing my video switching. Bear with me.
You can.
And let's do this. Okay, Rob. Good idea, bad idea. Garrett, Miles Garrett, picking up a fifth-year option with the Cleveland Browns.
Bad idea, honestly. I think he should just kind of, get his bearings somewhere else. Go find a better place, a better locker room, better area to be in. Not to say that the Browns, double cross him or anything, but I just think he needs a new environment to be in because, if he has the option to do that, he's going to get paid somewhere. Maybe not extensively, but he can control the years he's going to get paid. The Browns, they're either going to ask for a hometown discount or try to sign him to a long-term deal at a discount rate because of the stuff that happened last year. I think you guys just got to get out somewhere, get a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year deal.
Yep.
Get a different look in the league. You'll probably go to a better team, a team that you can choose and go to and succeed a little bit instead of depending on if the Browns will ever get good enough. I think it's a bad idea.
Yep. Well, with the horn already honking, didn't honk, it never went off. Shame. Good. So since the horn didn't go off, I will end like this. I think it's. I agree because no, I think it's a good idea because the Browns had his back when he did something egregious and stupid. So there's a sense of unity there. The Cleveland Browns have his back. So you got to stick with the team that still has his back instead of a stranger in new territory where you feel like you have to walk on eggshells everywhere you go. So, all right. Good idea, bad idea. Rob McLean. The Chiefs reach a deal with undrafted free agent Shea Patterson out of Michigan. Good idea, bad idea.
Good idea. I think anybody that's gonna contribute to, anywhere on that team is anything that's gonna put them over the edge. They're the Super Bowl champions, so I think anybody's happy to go there, and anybody is going to be utilizing that offense or defense or special teams the best way possible. So Good idea.
Yeah, I co-sign with that. I think it's a good idea, and I think because one, they didn't have to get a lot of money to get him, and two, I think he's one of the better quarterbacks that weren't drafted that no one's talking about. Now, how this guy went undrafted is beyond me. You got a 10-3 and a 9-4 record with Michigan, and all of his best stats, like most completions, most yards passing, happened against top 10 teams, against Wisconsin, against Ohio State. I didn't delve that deep into it to know if they were garbage time yards, but it seems like this guy's throwing his touchdown passes and doing all of his best work against big teams. Now the bowl games are the biggest stage where you get hosed because the other team is significantly more talented. Of course, you're not going to look good, but someone must have talked to Harbaugh about this guy, and I'm glad it was the Kansas City Chiefs. Good job, Andy Reid.
Well, on the other side of that too, you have, if you can get a quarterback in the fifth, sixth round or undrafted free agent, and flip them in 2 or 3 years for a second, third, fourth round pick, it's really important and very high draft value.
Definitely. Third question, good idea, bad idea. Rob, NFL preseason schedule is out, and the regular season schedule is coming out this week. Good idea, bad idea?
Bad idea. I just think it's a little too early to put out a schedule determining that the games are going to for sure happen when you don't know where or when it's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to happen at a certain time. I just think it's a little irresponsible.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and I'm erring on the side of caution. The same reasons why I said it for the last every other instance with the AVP and the other things. You have a schedule, something's set, and if you have to cancel it, you cancel it. But if you cancel it now and then things circle around where you could have started sooner than you would, it's much more difficult to scramble and assemble than it is to disassemble. It's easy. Legos. It's easier to knock down the. It's right. It's easier to knock down the block building than it is to put up the building blocks at the very last minute. However,
Yes.
more adventurous and exciting.
But also
Please.
to counter that, it's also more difficult to start something up, break it down, and then start it back up again too. So there's a flip side to it where possibly you could, be ready to go as soon as the restrictions are ready to be lifted.
Very, very well said, my man. And we're back. Split screen. All right. On this day in sports, we talked about Pete Rose getting hit number 3,000. Pretty significant. On this day in sports, the last game, the Boston Garden. It was 1995. Celtics beat the Magic, and they closed down the Boston Garden. And whatever the hell it's called now, I don't know. I don't care.
TD Garden, I believe, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taylor Crabb, Jake Gibb, Huntington Beach, this May 5th last year, beat Chase Budinger and Casey Patterson in the men's finals, which I thought Huntington Beach last year almost rivaled the FIVB co-promotion the year before. It was just exciting qualifier from the qualifiers all the way up. You have Jeff Samuels and Dave Palm. Don't even get into the main draw. They lose to Brandon Clemens and Dylan Merrick, and these are a bunch of main draw worthy teams. Not even making it out of the qualifier. And then when push came to shove, Chase Budinger showed his worth and his rapid improvement. Casey Patterson is always initially good with new partners. He's one of those guys that wanes off the more you play with him because it's a copycat league, and sooner or later they figure out how you playing. And Casey's got to figure out a way to sustain that. I won't call it beginner's luck because at this point of his career, it ain't luck, it's just skill. But it's sustain the performances he has early, however you want to slice that.
Just to maintain the partnership, because it's just as difficult to maintain it as it is to find it,
Yep. It's again, like we said in the beginning of the show, we found out yesterday afternoon, which is now, wink, wink. Don Shula passed away at age 90. Nice, long, healthy career for a job as stressful as an NFL coach. You don't really hear of coaches living that long. And if you do, we know who they are, or we can name them by name. So one of the most intriguing things, there's a lot of things to remember about Don Shula, okay? And I hope I'm not taking away any of your material. Perfect season, undefeated. Playoffs, undefeated regular season, perfect season, 17-0 to win the Super Bowl. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion. He coached the Baltimore Colts, who had Johnny Unitas. He was coaching a team, I believe, that lost to the Jets. Eubank. So the thing that intrigues me about him is he has 328 regular season wins. And in a 33-year career, that's basically 10. I'll skew it off and I'll say 10 plus. The actual math is just under 10, but when you consider in the 70s there weren't 16 game seasons.
Right.
So it's kind of like just over 10. And to sustain that for 33 years with two teams is a boss. All right, so that's 328 regular season wins, 347 if you count the playoffs, 2 Super Bowls, 1 perfect season, the only perfect season so far. And that's what I got about Don Shula.
Yeah, no, I mean, not really much more that I can really add, I just think I always remember that because, you never beat that season. That's Dan Marino, Don Shula, the offensive line, the two-headed dragon and running back.
The
that's
running
just the
game
team,
was just sick.
That's football. It was truly football.
Yeah.
So
the man was an encyclopedia too. So true football is, what you just said is better than like the 320 words I just said in my long soliloquy. By the way, I said 328 regular season wins. The guy who's second is 313. So he's 15 wins behind him. That's George Halas. And way behind all of them, 273, is Bill Belichick, who I think is probably I think he's trying to get to that record or die trying. I think he might die trying. 273. He will. 273 to 328. Because he's not going to retire. He's going to die. I think Bill Belichick is going to die trying. I don't think
on the field.
Yeah. Well, he better start eating a little bit healthier because, that hoodie ain't hiding that Yoda body.
That's why he cut the hoodie, because now it's just a loose hoodie. And you don't even know anymore. He can get as loose as he wants.
Well, hey, with that being said, hang loose, my man. Thanks for making this episode possible. This is episode 15. We're gonna name it later because we ain't into naming our stuff now. We just feel it out. Gave you guys a healthy dose of football, mixed martial arts. For those of you that are avid fans, thank you for joining us because we love us some MMA. And for beach volleyball, we're gonna talk a trailer ton about that next week. I interviewed Duran Forbes last week, and I actually went on her show, and we talked about what's next up for our beach volleyball national events and for how the coaches prepare. You're one of the coaches, and definitely highlighted you. And I want to say some fun stuff about you, but which can wait to next week because you're the same person this week as you were last week, and you're going to be the same person next week as you were this week. Anything to add, Rob?
No, man. Everybody stay safe. Keep cleaning your hands. Stay out the stores.
Yep. Clean your hands. Wash your ass.
Even if we're going to reopen, and that's across the world, even if you're going to reopen, you can not protest. You don't have to protest. You can just stay at home. Be safer at home. Just be safer at home.
I was just going to say that.
Federally mandated to stay at home, to just, isolate yourself. If you know that the neighborhood around you gets sick for a little bit, stay home for 14 days. Follow the guidelines like a critical thinker. Not as a robot.
Yeah, for me,
understand what you're doing so you can do it better.
For me, I haven't done any research on any study of herd immunity. What's better between herd immunity and just waiting out a virus that's at your door? But I do think the smart thing to do is if you're out, practice social distancing. And if for the people who think everything opens up too soon, there's no federal mandate that says you have to leave your house. I like what you said. Stay home. Continue to stay home. I will. Maybe you and I will eventually, maybe we'll do some quarantining. Quarantining is when we're not symptomatic, we tested negative, and then we'll do in studio where we will continue to practice social distancing. Have you seen the size of this desk? Okay. I got a big desk, dude. If you call me, they'll charge you long distance. It's a big desk, Rob. Oh, man. Rob, love you, man. And for everybody listening, and I speak for Rob, Keeper McLean, and myself, when I say thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Love you to pieces.
Later.
We're out. Come check out the Option Podcast on OptionVB.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.